Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Dr. Italo Brown, and this is Med vs. Movie. Med vs. Movie is a series where we're going to discuss some of the injuries that occur in popular films, Hollywood blockbusters. And so this one is about Christmas movies. I mean, I'm going to watch some of my favorite Christmas and holiday films and talk about some of the injuries, the crazy stunts that are occurring in these movies. First up, a classic, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Whenever I see the Griswolds on camera together, I just know that it's a countdown until something crazy about to happen. And I always thought that the grandmother was like the awesome person in the scene anyway. Her jokes were crazy and stuff. Now, I don't know why you would smoke a cigar and be asleep. Both of those things sound dangerous to me. But all right. Sweet ass dog. So from what I remember in this scene, like they went to get a tree out the woods or something like that. They came back with the tree. And my first thought is always, what is inside the tree? Like, is there insects? Is there something that's dwelling in the tree?
Don't hear it anymore.
It would close it. Oh, hell. Stop. So when I think about random rodents, animals, things of that nature, it's always a matter of like, is it domesticated or not domesticated? If it is domesticated, then your threat of injury, threat of harm, infection is a lot lower than if it's an animal that's not domesticated. It seems kind of straightforward, right? Until you encounter a random ass squirrel jumping on you. So in this scene, he just like gets attacked by the squirrel. I've had so many people come into the emergency department from squirrel bites, squirrel scratches, all types of different little random things that come from trees in the ground. It's always the same issue, which is one, where do they scratch you? Is it the back surface of the body? Is it the face? Is it the hands? Hands and face, a lot different than if it's the body, right? Immediately I start thinking about infection and then prophylaxis for things like tetanus or rabies, right? Most people don't think about tetanus, they're first to say rabies. Squirrels have rabies, other animals like raccoons have rabies. I've had people come in who fought raccoons, try to get a raccoon off of a dog, same situation. These scratches can lead to really bad superimposed infections. But the rabies portion is something that you gotta get to immediately. It's given in a series of 4 shots, so you have to be on. Every other week, there's like another shot. But ultimately, first dose, we're gonna give you the rabies vaccine and immunoglobulin, which is essentially like a super strong serum to help fight against the potential of rabies infection. And then you get the sequential doses. But on top of that, I'm gonna give you an antibiotic because I don't trust these squirrels. No one should trust these squirrels. Sure. We just watched one of the Christmas classics. Now we're gonna go into one of the newer movies. I always like watching comedies during this season, so let's take a look at Office Christmas Party.
I'm the king of IT fire!
All right, so we got my man Courtney Vance. Hold on to the shit. Oh, damn. So, all right, pause. I'm never ready for the exact moment that he like hits the ground. It looks like he hits a filing cabinet, then a ground. Every time I'm watching one of these movies and there's 2 or multiple injury scenes in one particular fall, I get a little bit unnerved because I'm thinking about all of the different organ systems that are involved once the fall happens. So it looks like he's swinging from these lights immediately, like the lights are not going to support you. He hits the filing cabinet with like his head and his upper body. So think about injuries like concussions, but more specifically, brain bleeds. Any intracranial hemorrhage can happen from like blunt force to the head. That's a straightforward diagnosis in my opinion. Then you hit the ground after that. So I'm thinking the deceleration injury. That's anytime there is a fixed object stopping a force that's moving at high velocity. This time it's his body slamming into the ground. And so things like cervical spine fractures or fractures of the neck, thoracic or even lumbar fractures, so other levels of the spine can all be injured this way. And I'm worried that he would have what's called an unstable fracture, meaning something that has to immediately be operated on, or else he could lose the ability to move his limbs or extremities or have sensation issue for the rest of his life, just from this one fall. This is kind of fake to me, right? So in the movie, they got him on the stretcher. They had basically used some Curlex, which is essentially medical gauze, to just keep his head down on the stretcher. But he doesn't have any real like spinal protection. When we see people come from major faults, they usually are brought in by first responders or EMS with cervical spine protection or a C-collar on their neck immediately. And that's to keep them from moving their C-spine and potentially worsening an unstable fracture. See how it got him in there looking like he just comfortable to try to make something, but it ain't really it. You know, his name is Cook. Now, the really interesting thing about all of this is it was really brought on by, in the scene, cocaine use. The brother was so high on cocaine that none of this even mattered. He looked like he didn't have any sensory at all. And that's part of the effect of a sympath of the medic or of cocaine use, is that it gets you so amped up. It pushes all your fight or flight sympathetic stuff to the extreme, to the point where you will look at a bundle of holiday lights and think that you can use it like Tarzan. So we just watched Office Christmas Party, one of my personal favorites. We're gonna transition right into a movie that is what I would consider to be one of the most controversial holiday movies of all time. In fact, it depends on who you ask. But I personally believe that Die Hard is the greatest holiday movie of all time. I mean, if you don't believe it, go argue with someone else, another film buff, but if you're not watching Die Hard during the holiday season, you might not be welcome into my household. Just bring a read and leave that to tour. This is the scene after John McClane was fighting some of these henchmen, and they decided to basically shoot out all of the glass windows. The glass is like glittered on the ground, and then he's trying his best to get from this park to another area of safety. Just for words of the wise, glass on the ground, look, you gotta put something on your feet. Now he's sitting on the scene trying to dig through his foot, removing foreign bodies from his foot. Super problem. Let's go. And shout out to Carl Winslow. I feel like this is a multiverse story where Carl Winslow, his early beginnings started in LA, eventually he ended up in Chicago and had a family, and they call his family. That's just my personal story. You don't have to believe it. However, I see him pull this piece of glass out of his foot. Two things pause. I remove foreign bodies from people's body parts all the time, everywhere you can think about. Glass is different. First things first, we can't necessarily always see glass on an x-ray. It sounds kind of like intuitive, but you go in and there's a piece of glass there, x-rays are not gonna always pick it up. So we use ultrasounds in the emergency department to see if there are objects embedded in the skin or beneath the soft tissue that we can't just visually get to. Obviously, John McClane doesn't have an ultrasound. He's more like, a vigilante MacGyver right now. He's just gonna go for it with his hand. Regular water can help to an extent. In fact, when I have a patient who had any type of injury, we do our best to irrigate the wound copiously, meaning as much water as possible to try to clear all debris. But just going in with your raw hand, like he put his hands underneath the water. So now I'm like, all right, dog, this doesn't do anything. You right back in the boom with the infection. So I'm worried about infection in this guy. I'm worried about retaining foreign bodies. And then there's the actual damage to the foot. Luckily, in the bottom of the foot, you don't have a ton of like really close nerves. They're more so aligned with the bones. But imagine cutting like a fibrous band at the bottom of the foot, something that we will call, the plantar fascia, or cutting part of the spring ligament. These things that help the bones to be in alignment so you can do things like run, walk, jump, land, all of these different actions. And so I'm worried that these pieces of glass could be embedded so far that they're kind of fraying some of these tissues. It can be really problematic for a person trying to escape and or kill a bunch of folks inside of the Nakatomi building. Is that what it's called? I feel like it's called the Nakatomi. Nakatomi? The Nakatomi place. So I thought this was pretty slick, right? He realized immediately, I gotta create something to explode, and he pulls this monitor and then makes the C4 onto the monitor. It's really clever. What's not so clever is this. All right, pause. Blasts always make me nervous, right? It's one, you never can tell the radius of the blast. I don't walk around dealing with C4. I'm not a ballistics expert or anyone that's worked in the military. So I don't know how much, propulsion or force comes with C4. However, if it's enough to ascend an elevator shaft, you better get the hell away. So I don't know why he's so close trying to see if it lets, but hey, you know, do you, John? Let's play. So explosion, we got shrapnel, we got wood. He sees it coming. You see the fire. But no, see, that's where he and I differ. I see fire, I run. But explosion occurs, boom. Right? Pause. He gets away. There are two things that are unrealistic about this particular scene, right? So when these explosions occur, there's the first wave of injury, right? Blast injuries have 4 different waves. The first one is physically getting the explosion, right? Then you have the things that are thrown and propelled through the air. So I'm watching this and I'm thinking, all right, is there the physical force of being thrown by the blast and he'll be lifted off the ground and slammed to the ground because of that particular energy. Then I'm like, all right, the fire, the actual flame, which clearly becomes a full plume right in front of him. And so I think about burn injury, smoke inhalation injury. All these things are pretty significant, right? Like if you happen to have these singe injuries in your airway, nose, mouth, it can swell really, really quickly. And then now you're talking about a person who can't breathe. In the emergency department, when these folks come in, I'm talking about, I've seen things crazy like a grandma blowing out, who had oxygen blowing out a candle, and then the flame went up and in her face. And so again, I know what fire can do. I'm pretty sure John knows what fire can do. In real life, he would have been cooked all around this area. And so there's that. And then finally, all the different things that kind of are thrown in his direction could potentially impale him or harm him because of the force of the blast. So we just finished watching Die Hard, a controversial movie. Again, it's a Christmas classic in my mind. And we're gonna move straight into a childhood favorite. Now, in the first time I broke down a movie, I talked about Home Alone 2. This time we're gonna talk about Home Alone 1. Marv is just a walking caution sign. Like, I feel like if he's involved, immediately there's injury impending. The other thing, he's the most resilient person. God, stop. This one scene is probably the thing that as a child I remember the most about the movie. Wasn't that Kevin McAllister set up all your booger traps. Wasn't the fact that his brother was an a-hole. It wasn't any other part of the movie except for when this dude stepped on a nail. This is within that same thing of the Die Hard movie where you got a foreign object. The difference here is we're talking about a nail, not just a simple nail, something that is like a 3-4 inch nail that he steps directly onto. My first thought is this is definitely passing through the first few layers of the foot, puncturing with a sharp edge, fine point, straight to bone. So I believe that if you really push down that far, you're talking about a potential fracture or some type of invasion, or rather a problem with the articulation, meaning the point where the joints connect. Is going to be disrupted. I then start thinking about the second things, like this nail, where's it coming from? Is this a random nail? Is it a rusting nail? Is it a nail that has been like used for something else, been inside of wood for 30 years? I don't know. And so now tetanus is back on the tape, infection is back on the tape, and tetanus is something that, again, we try to get ahead of by giving people tetanus shots or giving them the vaccine for that. As far as a foot infection, you know, we think about the foot as a place that has a lot of different organisms, right? When your foot is inside of a sock, inside of a shoe, it's moist. All different types of organisms can live. And so fungi, we talk about straight up bacterial infections. So you have to think about coverage that's appropriate for the particular part of the body. This dude just kept running through the house after getting stabbed in the foot. Again, I don't have that energy in me, but I respect him and the Sticky Bandits for trying to make it happen. Let's keep watching. And then he falls straight back. Several steps. So again, at this point, he should be knocked out. And so it's hard for me to say that he'd be able to continue. And in this particular holiday movie, again, it's a little unconventional, but I like it a lot. So let's go ahead and check out Friday After Next. So Money Mike is still one of the greatest characters to ever exist in a comedy movie. This is scary as hell. If I saw Damon over me, I'd be nervous too. Oh no. Right? I'll pause. let's just make a universal rule. No more nut clutches, everybody. But this is a lot different. In this scene, Money Mike, in trying to save his life from David, uses the wrench and then just like full on grabs his groin with his, and I'm thinking about testicular rupture. That's off the rack. Testicular rupture, I know even sounds crazy to say, but it happens. People come in from a variety of reasons, getting struck in the groin rather, landing wrong, like riding on a bike, getting in an injured crash of some sort, boom, sitting on the seat, testicular rupture. It's really this part right here, the pimpin' is the clinch down further. So everything is basically disrupted at this point. Yeah, urological emergency. That's what we're gonna call this. You think it's funny until it's not. It's always fun and games until they see you on the ground rolled over or you're vomiting. It seems cool. The concern I have from this picture is it looks like he just grabbed everything, and so it's not just one thing. It's literally gonna be a urological project, and this guy is gonna be in the OR for a minute. I hope it was worth it. Next, we have 8-Bit Christmas. This is gonna be a classic movie for years to come, mainly because of the nostalgia that we had in the loop.
Tell me what it is. I mean, is it your stomach? Do you actually think that maybe you could...
Oh! Yo, shout out to the SpaghettiOs. This is funny, pause. In reality, I don't think that this is a true food allergy, right? Food allergies don't present this way with just vomit. Usually it's problems breathing, hives or rashes, stuff like that. Vocal changes. What I think this is he's grossed out by the sight of the SpaghettiOs or the taste or some compound in the SpaghettiOs that causes him to throw up. So in real life, yeah, I don't think that this is happening the exact way, especially the number of times he vomited. But if you see something that you don't like, for me it's eggs. For some people it could be different types of preservatives, jellies. You can vomit just like this. Now on to what I think most of us would consider to be the greatest Christmas movie of all time, A Christmas Story.
Hey, Black Bart, now you get
There he goes. And boy, bad. He asked for this gun so much, man. He had me wanting a Red Ryder BB gun. I'm not gonna lie. Pause. The funny thing is, it's just prefaced throughout the entire movie. You know it's coming. And I never am ready for it whenever it happens. He shoots this thing. My first question was always, why would you shoot at something metal? It's a metal ball shooting at something metal. I don't understand that. When it ricochets and hits him in the face, it breaks his glasses. But I'm gonna think about it as what would happen if this pellet actually did strike here. It struck him in the face. And so it looks like it hit his glasses, or maybe it hit the rim of his glasses. It is face regardless. Immediately, when you're talking about ballistic injuries, where's the path of the bullet? Where's the entry point? On the face, again, you're still dealing with vital structures, the eye, soft tissues of the face that lead to essentially the brain. So is this bullet or projectile fast enough, forceful enough, and does it have the right pathway to where it injures the brain? So this kid is like extremely lucky. This could have gone far left. I mean, the BB could have penetrated through the eye, somehow affect the brain. He could have had significant injuries based upon the path of the bullet. I'm glad that he didn't. He just kind of like, flails to the ground. Maybe he should have listened to his parents. I don't know. But it looks like he survived this. Now, if you were ever a child and you saw this scene, I guarantee you either tried something like it or you tried it exactly. I was the kid that put a cube of ice and tried to see if my tongue will stick to it. And eventually when I found out it did, I got freaked out and I said, this is something I never want to do again. But this kid, he took a different route altogether. I don't know if a triple dog dare is enough for me to ever do it, but you kind of gotta, you can't back your way out of a triple dog dare.
Flick's spine stiffened. His lips curled in a defiant sneer. There was no going back now.
All right, stop. So when you have this particular, I guess, differential in temperatures, what we're talking about is the tongue sticking to something that's a lot colder than the body temperature. It creates this connection. And now I'm worried about with this kid is, will there be residual damage based upon the part that is stuck to the pulp? In reality, you're gonna lose some of the taste buds there, but they will not be gone forever. They'll be replenished. And so it's funny to watch this scene and then you think about the number of people who come in with injuries related to frostbite or some sort of like temperature oriented injury. Taste will be preserved or rather restored. Function is not affected at all. So a kid will be able to use his tongue, no problem. Ultimately, I do not recommend in freezing weathers going to put any surface that is moist onto something else that could potentially be stuck to. Just avoid it at all costs, y'all. I guess the message is for kids and adults, don't lick poles. Matter of fact, just stay away from holes altogether, all right? When I'm not in the hospital, I really enjoy watching a good film to decompress. And so it's a natural connection to me to want to see what movie injuries exist that are very similar to the things that I see when I'm in the hospital. And I find that when other people watch these movies, they're thinking the same things that I am. Like, is this possible? How did this happen? What would happen if this injury occurred in real life? And who's gonna handle it? How is it managed? What's the treatment? All of these questions run through my mind. And so I'm happy to be able to answer them and give you a little bit of insight.